So one of the things that I keep on, bringing up in this conversation about us leaving the EU, and more the whole reason to stay, is the fact that we have a really good system of regulations which allow our companies in this country to be able to trade absolutely freely and frictionlessly with any other country within the EU. Okay? Now, this means that when we leave, the Conservatives have literally said, oh, which regulations do you want gone? Which one do you want to put on the bonfire? If you are a manufacturer, this will mean you may essentially have to have 2 production lines, maybe even more. Now, adding production lines means more cost to your business, and so on and so on. Basic business sense. Now, of course, we're only going to, quote some experts here, so, they know what they're talking about here. So, UK businesses face a storm of flawed and poorly scrutinised laws rushed through by government ministers with minimal parliamentary oversight after Brexit, top lawyers have warned. Thousands of pieces of legislation must be amended or else they will simply not apply after the 29th of March 2019, when the UK leaves the EU. And with Brexit taking much of the government's time and Parliament's time with the task of trawling through laws to make these changes will be rushed and mistakes will undoubtedly be made, many of which will not be noticed until they are in force, Hugan Lovelace says. It is warned that it is it is warned that it was looking increasingly likely that the process of redrafting legislation would take place within the government departments and without appropriate consultation. Analysis by the law firm outlines the sheer scale of the task facing the government. Some 19,000 pieces of EU legislation must be replicated, touching all aspects of life, from health and to safety to harbours and highways, from employment rights to exotic diseases. A further 790,000 statutory instruments that implemented EU laws in the UK are also affected, along with 759 bilateral treaties and 41 European agencies that must be replicated. Charles Braisted, a partner at the law firm, said that businesses need to be more vigilant than ever before about mistakes that could affect them. He warned that even minor changes to the wording of a provision could dramatically alter the application of rules. The broad application of the so-called Henry VIII powers, which allow the government to enact legislation, is controversial. The Brexit department estimates that between 800 and 1,000 corrections will need to be passed by statutory instrument, which allows for laws to be made without a parliamentary vote. And bear in mind, we already know that the Conservatives have stacked these committees with anti-EU people who will vote against some of these laws. So those employment rights, which are very good at the moment, because they've come from the EU, could suddenly disappear. And this is what was funny, was someone put, someone can't make you pay, when I was talking about the fact that people like Mark Dyson want to make his workers, and make them, by the way, not say ask politely, make them work unpaid overtime, which under, again, the current EU employment laws and regulations is illegal to do, and you cannot do. He wants to get rid of that, so that he can then make his employees do unpaid overtime. when that law is gone, he will be able to do that. And someone said, oh, you can't do that. Yes, now they can't. But when that law goes, which I highly suspect it will, because a lot of the anti-EU backers from the big industries, like Mark Dyson, want to get rid of that law because he wants to make his workers make unpaid overtime. And don't think that it might not affect your business. So all these really big advancements in workers' rights that we fought, well, which were actually given to us by the EU because we were members of the EU, could suddenly just go away. And that could mean you would have to refight for all these rights all over again. You know, enjoy that, because I guarantee you we will lose a lot of these rights. That is, I guarantee you. So, ministers have claimed that the power to correct deficiencies in reinstated EU laws is justified because the process is purely mathematical, a mathematical exercise of making sure that the statute works when the UK is outside the trading bloc. But Mr. Branstad says that those decisions inevitably involve policy choices. The government has truly a mammoth task ahead of it, and it will need to work quickly to complete the largest legislative overhaul ever undertaken in the UK, which will fundamentally change the legal and regulatory environment of businesses across the country, he said. And this will cause huge problems. This is, and you know, so get ready for this, because this is a short-term problem that could create even minimum to longer-term problems. You know, don't be surprised when we leave, you suddenly find that your work, you might be suddenly given a new contract to sign. So, yeah, a lot of you might want to start reading your contracts and to see what rights you currently have, because when we leave the EU, your employer might suddenly say, oh yes, here's a new contract for you to sign. I wonder how many of you are going to now lose rights you once took for granted.